You're listening to Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry Sanderson on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
Experience holiday cheer at Tanger Outlets with savings up to 70% off your favorite brands. From fragrances to accessories and the latest styles, discover the best gifts for everyone on your list. Save big at Nike Factory Store, Michael Kors, Under Armour, Coach, Polo Ralph Lauren, Kate Spade New York, and so many more. Unwrap the best at Tanger Outlets. Hundreds of brands, endless gifting options. Plan your trip at Tanger.com.
Tonight, the high 58. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 28 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Inside the Locker Room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
And good morning and welcome into a Thursday edition of Inside the Locker Room. 205-342-9904 is the phone number if you'd like to jump in on the show with us this morning. The X account's at Locker Room 109 at Barry Sanderson at Wimp Sanderson 1. And the email address for the show is wimpandbarry at yahoo.com. You can shoot us an email. Download that app, that Tide 100.9 app. Send us an app message. I had talked yesterday that I thought the SEC has become entitled, and Greg Sankey think they just deserve to have 4 in regardless, and there were a little bit of pushback with that. And some people agreed, some people disagreed. One guy from Big Ten country did not want to hear that. He was tired of hearing about the Big Ten, so at least I stirred him up. And who was that, Q06? And we got a call from him, which we never called the show. I think he calls Christian some, but it was good to hear from Q06 over in Indianapolis. Download that app and you can send us that app message. We want to thank Yellowwood Pressure Treated Pine from Great Southern. Always remember, guys, if it doesn't have the yellow tag on it, then you certainly don't want it. Go to yellowwood.com to find a dealer close to you, and that will help you build that 5-star backyard. We love 5 stars around here. Good morning, Chase. Good morning, Dad. How are you guys? It's cold morning here in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, still the same thing in Birmingham. A lot of different things I need to mention to you. I'll mention them to you fast, and I'll jump from one to another. Of course, the big talk is that Bill Belichick is going to be the new coach of North Carolina. And let me explain to you the difference here. Bill Belichick and North Carolina, he was guaranteed a bunch of money. He and a good bunch of money to get players with, and he knows the ropes of getting players, and they felt like his name would bring in more money. But they got some guaranteed money before they ever hired him, and he still wanted to coach and do all the things that coaches do. With Gus Malzahn, it's totally different. He doesn't like the way you have to coach now. He wanted to go to an easier job where he sits down with X's and O's and tries to decide if Florida State can win some football games. The reason being for that is that you better get some players to do that. Players win games. Coaches help win games. Coaches help lose games. So the difference in Gus Malzahn and Bill Belichick is quite different. Bill's going to go through all the stuff that coaches go through. Gus has decided to get out and just do what he enjoys doing, and that's coach offensive football. Rich Rodriguez is going to West Virginia, going back to West Virginia. Did a good job at Jacksonville. Very, very good coach. Houston got the quarterback. That was at A&M. Weigman, he had Connor, and they picked him up. Last night, Kentucky got down, I think it's 17-0, 15-0 to start the game.
Colgate got down, yeah.
Colgate.
Yeah.
Colgate I think Kentucky got down.
No, I watched it. I think it was the other way around, but they came all the way back and took the lead.
I think Colgate got ahead. Personally, maybe right, maybe I'm wrong. It doesn't matter. 78-65. I thought it was a better deal there because I thought Dane Bradshaw does a good job. He played Alabama. He played Tennessee. He did a good job. Just shooting a lot of threes. I think Kentucky is good. I'm going to wait a little bit to tell you that it's as good as Barry thinks they are. They shot 33 threes, 31 threes, I think it was, and other teams shot a bunch too. So we'll see what happens there. I think they're good. I think they're going to be Knights. I don't think they're as good a shooting basketball team as Alabama is. I don't think at Knights they're going to be that good. Alabama's Saturday at 7:30. We'll play a Creighton team who's minus their best player. So we will see what happens there. But Alabama should take care of business there, I would think. It'll be a big crowd to see Creighton. I wish they were full speed, but they're not. In Atlanta, Ohio State and Auburn play. Ohio State's just fair. They'll play at noon on ESPN2 at the State Farm Arena, I believe it is, in Atlanta. I'm not going to get into SEC schedules with you because it's too early, and this schedule is bad, that schedule is bad. This is that. But I am going to say this to you. When you look and see how is your team going to do next year, this Auburn schedule is the most ridiculous schedule I've ever seen. When they get through playing at Baylor, it'll be a hard game in South Alabama. They go 5 straight games away from home. I mean, they're at Oklahoma, at Arkansas, at Texas A&M, at Vanderbilt, at Missouri, and then they come back to Kentucky. Come back and play at home again. 5 straight away games in the SEC with the injuries that you have, and I think it's a death schedule for Auburn, in my opinion. So I could be wrong, but I study schedules pretty good. Some of you may not think I'm very good at it, but I think I am. So that's it. I'm through.
I was looking at it here, so it says they want Baylor, Ball State, South Alabama, at Oklahoma, at A&M, bye. Then this says Georgia, Missouri at home, then at Arkansas, Kentucky at home, at Vandy, Mercer, and Alabama.
That's not what mine has.
How about Alabama opening up against Gus Malzahn on the road? Not against Gus Malzahn, but Gus Malzahn coach offense. Does that?
No, that doesn't make any difference. Well, he'll do some stuff good. You got to have somebody to do it with, and they struggle so hard getting players and quarterbacks left, and they're still having a hard time. It won't have anything. Alabama will stomp a mud hole in them, but I don't know why the schedule is different. My schedule is totally different. I think the schedule that I see here on CBS is brutal for Auburn.
Yeah, I don't see it. I see it is a tough stretch. You got Oklahoma at A&M, then they're off, and then this is Georgia, Missouri at home, which they could obviously lose to Georgia, and at Arkansas.
Well, the thing, Barry, is that they changed the games now. Playing the real tough game like Alabama played Oklahoma and Auburn played A&M. They're going to change that. They're only going to have a week, not 2 weeks. Auburn is going to play Mercer before they play Alabama, and Alabama is going to play Eastern Illinois before they play Auburn, which is a difference. It's different in that most of the time it was 2 weeks for Coach Bryant, and now it's only 1 week. This year we played a tough game before they played Auburn. Next year they changed that.
Yeah, I think Alabama's schedule is pretty doable.
I think it's very doable.
You get Tennessee and LSU at home. You do have to travel to South Carolina and Georgia, but
gotta go somewhere.
Yeah, but you got Oklahoma at home. You do have to go down to Auburn, so you got 3 pretty tough road games there. I guess Georgia, South Carolina, and Auburn, and Florida State to open up the season. So, Bill Belichick, do you think he called Coach Saban and said, all right, because he has no idea probably who to hire in college football. You got to hire some guys that are connected to some recruits. Freddie's coaching the team for the bowl. Jenny was texting with his wife the other day when Alabama was there playing in basketball, but I saw where they gave him some of the things that he wanted. He needed 30 people, and I guess it's just 30 additional staff members that he wants to hire there. So he'll have a real plan in place. But you think he'll talk to Coach, or did he have Coach call?
Do you know the reason behind it, Barry?
Behind what?
Behind the hiring.
No.
He wants to turn the job over to his son in 3 years.
Yeah. Hopefully they didn't guarantee that. You think they guaranteed that?
I don't know, but that was in the, if I think there's an if there. If we feel that my son is capable of doing this, he gets the first refusal. He gets the first interview and the first talk and those kinds. I think they're comfortable with it, but getting his son a job was the real reason behind. And I think he's a fine coach. How much? He may have talked to Coach. I have no idea. Coach.
Will he lean on Coach and say, hey, give me some names and some guys I should interview? Some guys texting me now. I won't call him out unless he wants to call. He's saying Coach Saban is trying to get him to hire Tommy Rees at North Carolina. I know Alabama fans will drive off the road. I don't know if Tommy Rees was as bad as Alabama fans.
Oh, he wasn't bad. That's all that crappy people right.
Will he lean on Coach to help him try to find the staff?
I don't think he will. I think he'll lean on him. I think he'll do pretty much with who he knows, because he's been in coaching a long time. It may be pro people that he brings in. The most important thing is that he brings people in who are willing to recruit as well as coach. We got to have players. You can't win. The formula to winning games is to get the better players than your opponent and get them to play hard. That's the key. Well, they can text in all they want to text, and he's going to have to get people that can get him players. And I think that's the thing. He'll ask Coach that or not. I have no idea. But they're friends. They're friends. They're not close friends, of what I can gather. But the atmosphere for Miss Terry was not what she wanted when they were with the pros in Miami that year. So they got out. Happened to have a chance to come to Alabama.
It'll be interesting to see who Bill Belichick hires. I'm sure he's been working on this behind the scenes the entire time. I'm sure his son will be one of the guys that will be hired. Will he hold on to Freddie Kitchens there, who probably knows the players, and maybe Freddie could be his offensive coordinator? I don't know. He had a hard time keeping an offensive coordinator with the New England Patriots, and he kind of made some errors there.
Well, the staff kind of went south a little bit defensively, and Chiswick was there for a while, and they couldn't stop anybody when they were pretty good offensively. And then he always had that disgusted look on his face about his team and concerned about his team. Of course, he was at the University of Texas, and he did okay there, and that's that. So it's going to be an interesting hire to see what happens if they can get busy in this. North Carolina is a great place to live, a great place to play and have fans, but you got to get players. All
right, we'll take the break. I got a controversial question I want to ask you when we get back from break. I think it's a fair question, and it's probably on a lot of people's mind here in Tuscaloosa. We'll discuss it when we get back. 2 Minute Truck, we're at 1330 Martin Road East. That's where you go pick up your boxes, your packing supplies, whatever you need to make this a smooth move. It's local, out of town, out of state, no problem. Let the professionals handle it. They'll take great care of you and your stuff. Give them a call today. They'll give you a free estimate right there over the phone. 205-247-5050. It's 2 Minute a Truck. Movers who care.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa Thread.
Good Thursday morning. Former Walker County Corrections Officer Megan Johnson is scheduled to appear in court today on charges of crimes against inmates. She entered a plea agreement in November. She's charged with abuse of inmate Tony Mitchell, who died after alleged mistreatment while an inmate at the Walker County Jail. The hearing is set for 9:30 this morning in court in Birmingham. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather coverage all throughout the day. It's free. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. We are moving with a purpose on these Tuscaloosa freeways and side streets. I tell you what, this is a nice and light Thursday, and you're just gliding through. Now, our usual spots are going to have some taps on the brakes from time to time, but no big deal here on Skyland Boulevard, both directions between McFarland and 359 and 3.
Need parts now? O'ReillyAuto.com offers in-store pickup, same-day home delivery, or next-day home shipping. Get more parts your way at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
At the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Road tripping, business travel, or bringing your car in for repairs. All great reasons to rent a Toyota at Tuscaloosa Toyota. You can rent the latest Toyota models for a day, a week, or a weekend. Every Toyota rental car comes with 24 hours roadside assistance.
Or just before Carroll's Creek Baptist Church. Sponsored by Edmondson Deer Processing, Tuscaloosa Tractor, Irvin's, Paul's Feed and Seed, and Anders Hardware.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Sunshine in full supply. The high for this afternoon around 52. Tonight mostly fair with the low at 33. Tomorrow a sunny day, the high 55. Saturday increasingly cloudy. We'll have a chance of rain by Saturday night, the high 58. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 28 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Need to know what's going on with the Crimson Tide? Then subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Pine from Grace.
Mary?
Yeah. Yes.
Before you get into your question, I want to say something about one of our former players. I think he listens to our show every day, and that's Mike Nordholz. What a player he was! Not because he scored the 50 points in the game against Southern Miss, but he was a player. I had to convince his dad that we'd tape his ankles because he had bad feet. A problem feet. Sam had some for the freshman team. Mike Nordholz, in the history of Alabama basketball, goes down as one of the great guards. I don't know. Most of the people that listen to my show don't know that, or don't hear it. I didn't see him, excuse me. But Mike Nordholz, what a player he was, and what a person he was, and I'm really proud of the things that he has done away from the basketball court and what he did for Alabama on the basketball court. Thank you.
Yeah, Mike's a really good guy. I actually coached his son at Georgia, Chris Nordholz and I think he's very successful there in Georgia, Chris Nordholz. All right, my question. You guys would, and this is not disrespectful at all, so if it comes across that way, that's not how I mean it, but Jalen Milroe, would you guys admit he's a running quarterback, right? I mean, that's probably his best thing. His legs are his best thing that he does. Now, people will say, oh, yeah, he throws the deep ball well, but he's a running quarterback. If he rushes for a lot of yards, he's dynamic with that. If he does well in that, Alabama generally was pretty successful. When he was shut down, they honestly lost. He has a year of eligibility remaining, Dad. Now, receivers probably don't really love playing with a running quarterback because they don't throw the ball enough, or he didn't spread the ball around. He's throwing the ball really to one guy. Running backs, not a lot of touches for the running backs when you have a running quarterback. That's just facts. It's not being disrespectful. That's probably the best thing that he does. If he wants to come back, does Coach DeBoer let him? Or does that set the program back a little bit because your better receivers probably aren't coming here? Your running backs are saying, well, he's coming back. I'm never getting the ball. I don't know that I'm going to stay. And once again, I don't know if he's going to go pro, if he's going to want to stay, or he's going to want to transfer. I think Coach, I don't know this. I think he likes an offense more of a drop-back passer that spreads the ball around. That's kind of the way they played at Washington. That's probably not Jalen Milroe's strength. And they may have already had this meeting. Maybe he's going pro and it won't matter. Maybe he does want to come back, or maybe he says, you know what, it's kind of toxic here. I've done about as much as I can do. I want to leave. If you're Coach DeBoer and the offensive coordinator, what do you want? Would you let him come back, or would you encourage him to look other ways in a polite way? I'm not being rude. I'm just saying, or do you say, man, yeah, he wants to come back. We got a guy with 2 years of experience. We're all in. How do you handle that if you're Kalen DeBoer?
Well, they've already discussed it. Kalen has a lot of confidence in his offensive coordinator. He believes in him. For some reason, all the great things that he has done, your quarterback has done, people are not as high on him as they were because they didn't get in the final 12, final group. I think it's a sit down between the coaches to decide what they feel like he should do, along with him. And I don't really know the answer. They've gotten the quarterback from the transfer quarterback is supposed to be very, very good. They've got two quarterbacks. One is gone, but the other kid who stayed with them as a backup quarterback has more ability than our fans think because they had to play the South Florida game, didn't play well. I think it's the open question as far as Milroe and the coaching staff as they get together. Now, one thing I'll say in closing: the head football coach can change the play pattern. He can stop. He could have stopped at any time. Too much running for Milroe and not enough running for our halfbacks, and he didn't do that.
Yeah, I just don't. If you want to play to his strengths, then I think you got to use his legs. All right, let's get to the Yellowwood hotline. Get Tom in. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Barry. Good morning, Coach. How are y'all?
We're good.
Okay.
You know, with Jalen, I made an observation the other day. I was watching the Philadelphia Eagles play. Of course, Jalen Hurts, the quarterback there, is doing an outstanding job at quarterback, and has really come on to develop into one of the premier quarterbacks in the NFL. And if you take Jalen Hurts and put him beside Jalen Milroe at the same time in their career at Alabama, Jalen Milroe's ahead of where Jalen Hurts was simply because of the deep ball that he can throw. And but Jalen Milroe, just like Jalen Hurts, was limited on some of the throws that he could make. And Bill Belichick pointed that out when he was here. And everybody got mad. How does he, and he had seen some of the best quarterbacks in the country. And Jalen is limited. Go back and watch the Oklahoma game. Venables shut down anything outside the numbers in the passing game for Alabama. And when they did, they forced everything to the middle where Jalen likes to throw the ball and deep, and they protected that. And that's the reason they just shut Alabama down. And but I think that he's probably reached his limit at college and needs to move on.
So if he wanted to come back, what would you tell him?
I'd say it's time for you to go.
In a nice way. Yeah.
I
I don't mean that negatively.
No, I understand.
I love him as a player, as a person, and everything, but there comes a point in time when, you know, you max something out and it's time to move on to the next chapter, and that's what Jalen Hurts did. He moved on and developed, and he became the quarterback he is now. He's a great quarterback right now.
Yeah, even him, of course, those guys are all in the NFL. That's what all these kids at Alabama are aspiring to do. A.J. Brown is frustrated with Jalen Hurts. They're 11-2, and he's complaining because he's not getting the ball enough. And I looked at the record and said, well, you're 11-2. And he's already at that. Well, but guys at Alabama aren't at the NFL yet, so they feel like they got to get their touches in order to for these scouts to see them. So they're not going to be as happy as well if that happens, if he were to come back, I would think.
And I think that's a great point. But I also think that the kind of offense Coach Bull will run is limited with somebody like Jay. I really think he's limited the playbook, and I think that was part of the deal. I don't think they really knew what to do with him. and because of what limitations were, and then I don't know that they could take the strength and run the kind of offense for his strengths are. It would probably, and if he goes as high as they're projecting him to go in the NFL, it's time for him, to make that move and make that money.
Yeah, well, he's making a lot of money here. Thank you, Tom. I think he would be. I think he'd be worth a lot of money in the portal for sure. If he got in the portal, somebody would pay out the nose. So that's a credit to him.
Well, I think his opponents would be glad for him to leave.
Yeah.
I do. I think the head coaches in the SEC be fine with them if he left.
Yeah, they're just afraid he's going to have that one game against them where they can't stop him. All right, we had a little bit of adjustment on the show today. JC had a situation this morning, so JC's going to move to tomorrow, and we're going to have Richard Hendricks, former center or power forward here at the University of Alabama from up in North Alabama. He's going to join us, doing a great job. He was calling the game. Actually, Dad, when you were down at Auburn on Sunday, he actually sent me a message how nice he thought that was that you were down there honoring Sonny Smith. So we'll get Richard on when we get back from break. This is Tide 100.9. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. We are moving with a purpose on these Tuscaloosa freeways and side streets. I tell you what, this is a nice and light Thursday, and you're just gliding through. Now, our usual spots are going to have some taps on the brakes from time to time, but no big deal here on Skyland Boulevard, both directions between McFarland and 359 and 3.
That's the real holiday magic. Go to BMW of Tuscaloosa before time runs out on these hot year-end offers. BMW of Tuscaloosa. Take your dreams for a drive.
Mr. SEC Tournament Wimp Sanderson gives you his excellent analysis every weekday on Inside the Locker Room, right here on Tide 100.9.
Inside the Locker Room. Yellowwood pressure treated pine from Great Southern Wood. You want to build the 5-star backyard, you want to use Yellowwood. Go to Yellowwood to find the dealer closest to you. All right, get right to the Yellowwood hotline. Chase Scott was a great player. First team parade All-American, a McDonald's All-American. Obviously was first team All-SEC when he was here. Euro Cup Finals MVP. Played a long time in Europe, working now with the SEC Network, calling a lot of games. Richard Hendricks. Good morning, Richard. How are you, sir?
Hey, Richard.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank y'all for having me.
Appreciate you, Justin, with us this morning. We were going to have Richard on tomorrow, but we did a little pick and roll, and we switched the guest. Richard, talk about the balance of this SEC. A lot of times we look at it and say, gosh, there's not a lot of good non-conference wins. The SEC normally loses a lot of these games. They're winning about all of them this year. So I think that sets up to have a great conference race, and there'll be a lot of opportunities to get quality wins based on what these teams from top to the bottom have done in the non-conference.
Yeah, I think this is a very strong and deep league this season. I've been able to see a lot of the teams up close, and the thing that I've been impressed with is obviously the talent level. But as you mentioned, being able to win big games. I mean, typically there's been a lot of people saying in years recent that, the SEC is the best conference in the league and obviously in the country, but, have not been able to get into the Final Fours and win the national championships. And even when they have big-time marquee games against other conferences, not able to get it done. But this year, it's been something different. I mean, dominating the ACC in the SEC-ACC Challenge. And I really think this is going to be a season where it's going to come down to the last weekend, just like it did last year, where there were 5 teams in contention to win it all. But I think it's going to legitimately be about 8 teams that really have a chance that can win the SEC. And they already, right now, Joe Lunardi already has 12 teams in the tournament with LSU and Vanderbilt as the first couple of teams out, as well as Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, it's a strong league. There's not going to be an easy game any night. And for the team's sake, quad one opportunities every single game when you play on the road. So that's just a tremendous opportunity to always still be in the race to make it to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that.
Richard, do you know the most important thing a coach needs to do to play in the league this year during practice? Let me tell you.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
You spend practice after practice, probably going 4-on-5 and defending the three. You work on shooting it, but the biggest thing that you do is you cannot be late. You must contest all threes. If you take a record and look at the contested threes, they go way down. And people just to say, now we've got to get to the three. You don't do it that way. You drill it and you contest the threes. That's the most important thing you can do. It's what I would do in getting ready for every game in the league. Go ahead.
I definitely agree with you. I mean, the way that the game is played now, the three ball changes everything, and everybody has a capable roster to make shots from outside and from deep. So the way that you guard it is definitely going to be something that is very important. You have to try to limit rotations on your defensive side. You have to try to be able to close out on your man and contain some drives. But the spacing and the ability to shoot it from deep has just changed the game, definitely from the time in which I played. But it's going to be such a huge thing because every team has outside shooters that can get it going, and they can get it going quickly. It's the spurts that teams can go on in games that make it so difficult to close out teams.
Richard, talk to the listener. Last year, Auburn, they played at Alabama. They were playing at Mississippi State like 2 or 3 days later. And so they came to practice at my gym. And when they walked in, the size of those guys, like I couldn't believe how long and big those guys. TV didn't do it justice. Now I know Alabama is so long, the guys that they can put on the floor. Talk about length in basketball and what a factor that is. I'm not talking about the lob pass. Yeah, that those are great. You just throw it up, a guy can go up there and get it and dunk the ball. But defensively, using your length, what problems that causes for other teams?
Well, I think the difference for many of the really good teams is that they have mobile bigs. In the way that everyone's playing now with the pick and roll and spacing everyone out, if you have the ability on your roster to be able to switch from any position and be able to contain the ball, now you give yourself an advantage. You mentioned some of the teams like Auburn and Alabama as well. They have so much size on the perimeter that when you can switch, you can still be in a good rebounding position when it comes to shot being up. And then when you have the ability to have so many players who can push it and transition, it's the positionless basketball that the length has been able to allow players to really be able to show the diversity of the game. I think when you talk about some teams, they do have length defensively, but there are a few teams in the SEC that I do believe have the play style versatility where they can also utilize the length on the interior. And I believe as the season goes on, if you're not hitting those outside shots, to be able to have the ability to switch things up and win grind out games with different styles plays a big difference in how far that you can definitely go in the NCAA tournament, obviously, to win the conference. But you have to have size. I mean, it's just it's a game nowadays where, particularly on the perimeter, if you have a little bit more size defensively, it allows you to be bailed out. And Auburn is a team that definitely has that type of capability. Alabama is another one as well, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah.
Did you play inside out, outside in when you were your coaches when you were playing?
Well, I think I got a unique experience. I think my professional career for 13 years and my collegiate career was over a span of the game changing. If you go back to when it was in 2005 to 2008, we had 6 players in the paint the majority of the time. You didn't shoot too many outside shots. The idea of a good shot was to try to get a layup. And you trade between tandem with high-low bigs passing at each other. And the game was scored probably in the 60s, maybe in the 70s and whatnot. And that was a physical brand of ball. As I continued to play professionally, They were introduced more pick and rolls, pick and pocks in the game, more spacing. Guards were allowed to dribble the ball more than they were in the time when I played in college. So I had a unique perspective that I was able to be effective in a style where you threw it into the post and you tried to grind the game out. And then when we played more of a free-flowing game where they asked me to shoot the ball from the outside and play in space and pick and rolls, and you might only have one big on the court opposed to two. So I do think that for me, I had a unique skill set that allowed me to be able to flourish in both styles. But when I look at a lot of players today, they don't know how to play in the grind out style. They can only play in space. They can only play facing the basket. They can only play in the pick and roll, and they don't have the ability to play with their back to the basket and when the game is slowed down. And when you do have a player that has that ability, they stand out, and it gives the team far more chances to win games when you have a curveball thrown at you with a different type of team that you play on your roster.
Talk a bit about Mark Sears. He has the ability to play with his body. I've never seen a guy that can use his body. He has a strong body, and when he drives, he has the ability to draw fouls. I don't think enough players can do the things that he does when he drives. You're not going to block his shot. He's going to get his body into your body. It almost looks like you absolutely murder him every time he goes in. That's a skill there that he has. I'm not sure you can even teach that, Richard. Talk about what you see with Sears, the way he uses that strong body.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think pound for pound, he might be the strongest player in the college game.
Yeah.
I mean, when he gets going downhill, you're hanging on for dear life when you're trying to play. And then when he's able to get to the basket, as you mentioned, he's able to sell it and get a foul called. Or he can finish even with a lot of high efficiency. He's an intelligent player when it comes to scoring. Scoring is a systematic thing that a lot of players don't understand how to do. I think players come out and they just shoot and hope they make shots and that they have more of a volume shot selection than they're able to get their point production. But if you understand, if I can get to the basket and get a couple layups, if I can get fouled and get 7 to 8 points at the free throw line, if I can hit a 3 or 2, now I'm at my 20-point per game average. And Sears seems to understand how to play in that way. If you watch him play, he understands when he can take his moments, when he can get fouled, and then he shoots free throws at 90%. If he gets an open look, then he's going to knock down the three-pointer, and he's really has it going if he really can hit it when they're contested or off the bounce. So, I mean, it's an intelligent way to play the game, a cerebral approach, and you pair that with the physicality he has and able to go downhill and finish in the paint and then get fouled. You see why he's selected as the preseason player of the year in the conference. But I do think he'll have a tougher season this year in conference play.
Yeah, and then LeBaron Philon he's kind of incredible to me as well. He scores off his speed. He's got tremendous speed. I told Dad he reminds me a lot of Sprewell speed-wise, and he can get into the lane and kind of go off either foot and make some tough floaters that are hard to make. He makes them look easy. This kid's way ahead of his time as a freshman. Talk about what you've seen with LeBaron Philon.
It's the speed, but it's also the pace and deceleration that he has.
Yeah.
And if you watch him, he does a tremendous job of utilizing his eyes to keep the defender at bay. I mean, he comes into the paint, he looks players off, he changes his pace. That allows him to get to the cup. He also, averaging about 4 assists per game, so he has the court vision to be able to look and find open players. But he uses his eyes and his pace to do a really good job of freeing himself up when he's driving into the paint. He's not just going in there with a full head of steam with his head down, hoping for something to happen. He's decisive and he understands what's going on when he's trying to be a playmaker.
Yeah, that.
Oh, I can't think of anything. That's a good job. I think maybe for this year, and I studied, of course, when I was coaching, we had 10-team league. Played everybody twice. The bottom of the league, I think, is better this year than it has been. Well, we always talk about the top of the league. I can name you the 5 best teams in the top of the league, probably. But I think the one thing that we have is the bottom of the league better. We have players sometimes that that leave in football because they don't get many passes. That they pass into somebody else. I don't know that the guard at Auburn left Auburn because he wasn't shooting enough. Is that the reason he came to Alabama?
I have no clue why he left. I mean, I do think that they play a different style, and I think the up-tempo style that Nate Oates plays, as opposed to Bruce Pearl getting you in the flex offense and throwing it into the low post. I think it suits his style a little bit more to have a free-flowing, free-reign opportunity to just shoot threes from the outside because he's quick. He has that ability to do so. So I think he also sees the other guards in which they're able to flourish with that type of system to be encouraged to do that, and have found an opportunity. But he's a really good player. I think he looked a little bit unsure of himself at Auburn. I think his confidence has improved. But listen, I mean, as you mentioned with the transfer portal, a lot of times kids are going to always think that the grass is going to be greener somewhere else. I'm not so sure that's the case, but you just have to make sure you try to make the best of the opportunity that you have wherever it is. I would like to see more players stay in a system longer because developmental-wise, for you to be a professional, there's a lot that you can learn from having the consistency of one coach and to continue to grow your game. And if you're constantly trying to make the change, I don't know if you get the development that you need to be a really good player because the new coach needs what they need from you right now, and it becomes far more transactional. And for the growth of the game, players need to understand that they have a long ways to go. I mean, as an analyst now, and I watch the game, I know collegiate players think they're doing a great job, but from a former pro perspective, you see flaws throughout the game tremendously, and you can only hope that they can improve upon them. But that was something in previous times that you saw the improvement over time because you were in a program, and players don't benefit from that anymore.
We're talking with Richard Hendricks. Richard, the game is so much different now. Not that the game's different, but also how these players are treated is so much different. You were mature coming out of high school. A lot of kids aren't near as mature as you are. Alabama just played in a tournament in Vegas, and I think they got $1.2 million put in their NIL fund. I'm sure whatever they were guaranteed, that would just go towards those guys. But how difficult is a coach's job now to manage a locker room when these guys are all making different types of money there? Some guys playing a lot, some guys not playing a lot, trying to handle that side of it. But when you throw the money in there now, a lot of these guys are making life-changing money. And what that affected your decisions when you were coming out of high school? Would you say, man, this is a business decision. I got to look at this thing and try to figure out where I can make the most. You only have so much time to make it. Just all these things that these kids are dealing with at a young age. How would you have handled it? And is it a problem in the locker room sometimes managing all this?
Well, honestly, with myself, I think I definitely would have considered it. I mean, obviously, I was a kid who was from the state of Alabama. I always wanted to go there. I enjoyed my experience as a student there and appreciate the coaches for recruiting me there. I had several family members that graduated from the University of Alabama, so it was a place that was special that I wanted to be there. But if I'm honest with myself, if the opportunity was there to pursue other opportunities as far as financially, or even in the period that they had after I came where you were able to be a graduate transfer without sitting a year out, it's something that you have to look at. And I would even say if I was a player, for many players, I was listening to the show earlier, you mentioned Jalen Milroe, it behooves you to try to consider getting in the portal almost every year, especially if you have a good year. It's like free agency with no guardrails. As a professional, every single year, if I had a good year and I was not in a contract or in a contract year to renegotiate, I'm looking to go get more money. I think with that being the case, if you talk about the coaches that it's the hardest on are the coaches that are in the profession to keep the culture as it was, that you're trying to educate kids and treat them in a way that they can end up having the tools that they need for life. But the coaches who have accepted it, it's a little bit more transactional, and you want to get the best players that you can afford and get them every single year and try to win as many games as you can. And if they want to stay, then we'll negotiate. If they want to go, we'll let them go. I think they tend to have a little bit more success because it's hard to find some of the players who just want to be a part of your program and then maybe still achieve the wins that you want to win and do it in the style. I mean, it's the reason why you see some of the coaches retiring, particularly like Tony Bennett at Virginia. It's a hard thing to try to have to re-recruit your players every single year. So if I was a coach, unfortunately, I think you just kind of have to get with the program and view it like professionals. If they're not giving you the production that you need to win, then you move on. I would like to see if this is going to be the model. If the players have so much movement now, I would like to see the coaches have a little bit more roster, fluidity. I mean, if you're in the professional game, you can make changes mid-season. Why should you not be able to do that now in the collegiate game? Yeah. I mean, if I have so much responsibility or I have so much pressure to win games, if someone is not performing to the level that I want, why should I not be able to make a change in the middle of the season? I mean, you can do it anywhere else where there's money that's being made transactionally as far as professional sports are concerned, the same. So you got to be one or the other. Just make it pro, or just make it how it was in college, where it was all about trying to get a degree and try to mold young men and try to win a few games. But it was more important about, the development and the reputation of the program than it was just simply making it about wins.
This may not be a fair question, but you see these teams, other than recruiting, and I think he's done a good job recruiting. Arkansas hired John Calipari. When I watch his teams play, I don't say, boy, I'd hate to have to guard this. Or, boy, they're really good defense. Other than they have good players, what does John Calipari hang his hat on in coaching? Is he one of the top coaches in the SEC? Rick Barnes is going physical. They're going to play tough defense. They're going to be hard to score on this year. Offensively, they're a little bit better. What does John Calipari hang his hat on coaching-wise, other than recruiting?
Other than recruiting, I don't know. I mean, I guess I would say there was a time when he did kind of have the dribble drive as something that he wanted to do, give you guys the space and allow them to create and give them the freedom. I mean, with all due respect to John Calipari, I think he's definitely a Hall of Fame coach. He's done a tremendous job. But, when they made the change at Kentucky to bring in Mark Pope, if you watch what he did at BYU, I mean, it's not in a disrespectful way to talk about Cal, but from a coaching standpoint, I thought they made an upgrade. Sure. Now, I do think that his charisma that he has or has had in the past, his ability to motivate players, and just to be marketable is an important skill that he has as a leader. But as far as X's and O's, it might not be the best. But at the same time, when you have really good players,
sure,
you really want them to play with freedom. You don't want to try to, tie them up with certain things. But at the same time, I think he did a really good job of getting the one and dones, getting them to the NBA, and that's the main selling point. You cannot argue with the guys that he had, obviously being. But when you have young players, you can't develop anything over a long period of time to teach them how to play. He's in a tough situation, but I think that's the best fit for him. He has to continue to try to bring in the top recruits and just only hope for the best. But that's not the recipe to win in college basketball. You have to be older. You need continuity. You have to run some off-the-ball action, creativity-wise as far as offensively. And, you have to be able to just have your team prepared as far as adjustments in game. I don't know if those are his strong suits, but the talent that he has always will allow him to keep him in the game, just like it was in the last game when they were able to make a comeback when they were down early. Yeah. But, he's getting a little older. I'm not going to say the game is behind him. He does have some good years in front, but he's going to have to continue to bring the talent in.
Yeah. Dad, anything else for Richard before we let him go?
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate you.
Where are you headed? You calling a game this weekend, Richard?
Yes. I'm be on the road in Atlanta for the Hoopsgiving tournament. I have Florida versus Arizona State in a really good game. You have two teams got some good young bigs on that team. And then I have on a doubleheader, I have Georgia versus Grand Canyon. So Bryce Drew and Grand Canyon team that played Alabama last year in the NCAA tournament. A tough game against a really talented Mike White team. That's a Georgia team. That's an NCAA tournament team. But they might be 10th or 11th or even 12th in the SEC when it all is done, all said and done. But a lot of fun, exciting. It was good to see Coach Wimp Sanderson. Good to see you on the road. I was down in the Plains and to see you there in support of Sonny Smith and his recognition. So we were two guys in there that were smart enough to wear blue jackets and not get in any problems in the jungle. But I think we made it out all right.
I got pointed at enough. Kept pointing at me, so I didn't wear anything that had red on it.
Well, Richard, you're a budding star in the TV industry, man. You do an absolutely great job. I enjoy listening to you. We love having you on with us. So if you don't mind, we're going to bug you throughout the season about SEC hoops.
Anytime. Give me a call anytime, guys.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank y'all.
All right, we'll go ahead and take this break. Get back up at the phone lines, 205-342-9904. Also have the great Tom Hart will join us at 8:15. You listen to Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of The Game, we're going to talk Insider.com. We'll get an update on the transfer portal, who's in, who's out, what's next. Will Alabama be looking to add to their roster? We'll talk about that with him, Bruce Marshall, Brad Powers, all starting at 2 p.m. here on The Game on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. It is a very light Thursday, which is always a wonderful thing when you can glide across the city without heavy delays or not at least too much of them. Now, we do have 43 slowing down just a skosh on the southbound lanes to McFarland Boulevard. This looks like intersection delays. And taking a look at Scott.
9 will award $500 for the best Christmas light display in West Alabama. To enter, upload your photos to Tide109.com. Merry Christmas from your friends at Taco Casa and Tide 100.9.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Monsi Bolaños.
The Houston Rockets pulled it off.
Podziemski to inbound it. 3.5 to go. Podziemski looks, gives it up to Curry. Podziemski side pocket. It's blocked. Yeah. Blocked. And the Rockets win it. The Rockets are going to Vegas.
You heard it all on the Rockets Radio Network. They defeat the Warriors in the NBA Cup quarterfinals 91-90. Alperen Şengün led the way for Houston with 26 points and 11 rebounds. Now Houston will face OKC in the semifinals. Earlier today, the Hawks punched their ticket to Las Vegas after defeating the Knicks 108-100. Trae Young with his own double-double, 22 points and 11 rebounds. Atlanta will face Milwaukee in the semifinal.
59 North and Northport, just before Carroll's Creek Baptist Church. Sponsored by Black Warrior Marine, Castaway Fish Co., Riverside Feed and Seed, and Adams Heating and Cooling.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Sunshine in full supply. The high for this afternoon around 52. Tonight mostly fair with the low at 33. Tomorrow is sunny day, the high 55. Saturday increasingly cloudy. We'll have a chance of rain by Saturday night, the high 58. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 28 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Inside the locker room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to the second hour of Inside the Locker Room, 205-342-9904. If you'd like to jump in on the show with us this morning. Allstate Insurance agent Andrew Conifer. Andrew's my agent. Let him become yours. He's out at 4705 McFarland Boulevard, Suite 3 over in Northport. Give Andrew and his staff a call. They'll set you right up. Home, life, auto, whatever you need. They'll take great care of you. Once again, 205-722-9201. We do have an app message. We were talking about Milroe not being disrespectful, just saying, hey, would you want him back? Or do you afraid maybe some of the guys that didn't get the ball would maybe like to have a guy that distributes the ball a little bit more? Because his strength is his legs. QD 1911 said no. Milroe doesn't need to come back. A simple time to move on. He's done as much as he can here at Alabama. Appreciate all he's done these last 2 years. So I don't know if other people feel that way. The most important thing is, what does Jalen Milroe feel, and Coach DeBoer and the offensive staff there at the university. And I'm sure, as Dad said, they probably already know what's going to happen there. All right, get to the Yellowwood hotline and get Philip into the show. Good morning, Philip.
Good morning, Bear. Well, that's an interesting question, and it's a hard question. We're going to know a lot more if DeBoer comes out in the next few days and somebody talks to him about it and he says something like, well, Jalen's got a real high draft status right now. If he says those words, not Mel Kiper or some other pundit, but if Coach DeBoer says he's got a high draft stock pick, then I think he's gone. But if we go into the next few weeks without DeBoer saying that, I think that sort of tells me that Milroe wants to come back. And there's some things about that Milroe has done in the past that sort of bothered me, that I guess he's instigated. I'm on the outside looking in, but in the summer of '83, he got a few of the receivers together, and they took off, I believe, to Tampa, Florida. And they had several days of workouts together. And it was like their own exclusive little club. And that caused me to raise an eyebrow when I saw that. And then when DeBoer took over last January, and DeBoer sat with him at the basketball game, and Ty was left out of the picture, Longren was nowhere in sight, but those two were at the game sitting together like they'd been knowing each other for 20 years. That sort of bothered me a little bit, but I don't know. I kind of think the guy wants to come back, but I'd tell him that you're welcome to come back, but you're going to be an NIL guy, and you're going to be a walk-on, like George is telling Barry Alexander.
Dad, comment on that?
Well, I think Philip and everybody else is more down on Milroe than they were to start the season. However, the calls come in according to how the guy plays, and that's what this call is about. They're down on him. They don't feel like the opponent's coaches are not down on him, but the listeners like Philip and other people are down on him because they don't think they got the 12 and he did this and he did that. And the truth of the matter is that his ankles were injured and he really couldn't throw as well. But I'll leave it at that.
But if you had receivers, if your son was a receiver on the team, other than Ryan Williams and maybe Jeremy Bernard, who got some looks there, it seemed like we kind of, we went to those. Maybe those guys were the only ones open. I don't know. But I don't know that all the receivers would feel, what would they think if he's coming back saying, oh, gosh, I never get the ball. I only, with the portal the way it is, if you had to sit out, I don't think people would run to the portal. Would it hurt your roster a little bit, Philip, if he did decide to come back, where the running backs say, man, I'm not going to get the ball because that's his strength. He's going to run the ball, so my numbers are going to be limited. I'm trying to get to the league, and I can't do it if I don't get the ball, so I got to go somewhere I'm going to get the ball more. Would it hurt more than help if he came back, in your opinion?
I mean, I think it definitely could. The only guys, I guess, that can really answer that question is the staff. But I think it definitely could. But at the same time, we're humans, and that schedule came out last night. And as a coach, do you say, "Damn, I'm gonna"? If he wants to come back, he can come back.
Well, I think your call is based a little bit behind the scenes that you don't think he should come back. I think the schedule for Alabama is not bad. You got to play somebody. You got to play South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not. You study their schedule versus the others, and I had to study it completely. But I think it's about as fair as you'll find. And there's not one coach that doesn't drip. Now, what did they play him wrong? They played him the way the head coach wanted to play him because the head coach is on his phone with the offensive coordinators. It doesn't touch the defense. So it's a combination of, you're right, of the head coach, not calling the plays, but suggesting things that they do.
Well, I thought there was probably a boycott almost when they went to South Florida last year and didn't start him. Like the guys rallied around him and they basically said, okay, and they didn't play. I don't know that you have that same. I'm not saying they're not close with him, but I think everybody, starts to look at their own situation. Like I want the ball. Everybody wants the ball. There's only one ball, and so but he has the ball most of the time. So I don't know. I'm not saying that his teammates don't like him and love him. I'm sure they do, but they also look at it as, and I need the ball to put up my numbers. Everybody's about their numbers. You can say whatever you want, but they are.
Well, I think for all of us, Barry, that he's going to say, and they're going to say, don't you want me to throw the ball to the open man? and don't you? Yeah, you do. Philip and I do, and you do. We need to throw the ball to the open man. The Booger Bear is always open. And I think that's one of the problems that, I criticize it myself. He didn't throw it, but he throws the ball to the open man. That's what he's supposed to do. And it's hard for us to evaluate that, really.
Yeah. Philip?
Well, I think that, that conversation with him, it could definitely happen about him returning. But I think it gives the staff a really good opportunity to say, well, that's fine. That's great. But here's what you got to understand, and then tell him some things that he needs to understand going forward, that the job, A, is open, and B, we would love your leadership, and we don't want any dissension.
I don't know how you do that.
No, I don't know how you do it. He either starts, or he either starts and plays, or he's gone.
I just think Coach DeBoer's got to decide how, what am I going to build my program on? Do I want to build it on, and can I afford to lose these guys behind him? And will they leave if he comes back, or do we just need to have a clean break from him? If he wants to go pro, fine. If he transfers, I hate it, but he might transfer when we play against him, and that might not be good. Well, because he will be sought after. If he gets in the transfer portal, he will definitely be sought after.
He will.
Philip, was he, in your opinion? I'm asking you, not telling anything. Was he played wrong? Did he play? Did the coaches have him playing not in the best, in too much him and not enough everybody else? The way Barry thinks.
I kind of felt like it personally.
Yeah,
I kind of felt like it, but it wasn't all his fault either.
No, he runs what they tell him to run.
Yeah, it would have helped if the offensive line would have played better.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just think that when he gets in that huddle, he gets the signal from what they're going to do, and that's it's not that they have a game plan.
Yeah, I just think this losing the locker room talk, quote unquote.
Yeah,
I think a lot of that has lost its steam. We've had 11 players pulled in the last few days. There have been players pulled before that. So we're down now. We just got 25 new signees, and then last January we brought in about 25 new guys, and a handful of those guys played. So they're about 40. There are about 50 some odd guys over there that are part of the new regime, and they're probably only about 20 some odd guys that are part of what I call the Milroe regime. So there ain't a whole hell of a lot more to lose.
Yeah, I do this blue plate all the time, and yesterday I found out that Arkansas lost 25 players.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying to myself, now should I make them the blue plate? 25 cotton picking players, 88 out the gate.
And people look at it and say, well, only 2 or 3 of those guys, did anything this year. Well, they don't understand the depth, and those guys are probably 1 year away from playing. It's like some of these guys that are leaving Alabama, you look and say, well, those guys didn't do that much. Well, sometimes it takes a guy a year or two to kind of learn the system and learn how to be a college football player. It's when they're time to shine. You look at some of these guys that left, Amos and some of those guys that left, they did really well at these other places.
25 cotton-picking players?
Yeah. All right.
Hey, I guess the big question, Barry, is will Milroe play in this bowl game?
Yeah, as I look at these mock drafts, they have him kind of being like the third quarterback taken behind Sanders and Cam Ward. If that's the case, then I don't think we're wasting our time. He's gone. If that's the case. Thank you, Philip.
Gotta go.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank y'all.
All right, we're going to get to Tom Hart. We'll get back from break. This is Tide 100.9, 1230 a.m. WTBC is the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Looks like we've got a fender bender on Highway 43. Yes, it is definitely slow, and it's right after Highway 171 at North Creek Boulevard in Northport. Now, that is an accident with delays, and then we're also looking at some slow rolls on 43 again.
Only here for a limited time. Shop now at Dell.com/deals. That's Dell.com/deals.
Crimson Tide Today is presented on Tide 100.9, WTBC 1230 by BMW of Tuscaloosa. Online at bmwoftuscaloosa.com.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's a daily update on Bama sports, and it's brought to you by The Good Feet Store. The Good Feet Store is a proud supporter of the Alabama Crimson Tide. For over 25 years, The Good Feet Store has been helping people get back to the life they love without their feet getting in the way. Start your journey at goodfeet.com. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. On Monday's edition of Hey Coach, presented by Alpha Insurance, Chris Stewart was joined at Baumhower's Victory Grill by Alabama women's basketball head coach Christy Curry.
It's a fun time of year and celebrate the holidays with friends and family, and then a lot of our kids' families get a chance to come watch us play, and some really fun locations. And I'm proud of this team and who we're trying to be, and honestly excited to be home for a few days.
Sure.
And be able to get our feet back under us, get busy with practice, and the most important priority this week is finals, making sure our team finishes the week the right way this week, and as we head into break, just continuing to improve. Credit Cal, they played great. Again, I think they're an NCAA tournament team, and it's only going to strengthen our resume. And as we head into this week with a really good Murray State team, we get a chance to come home and correct some of those things, get healthy. I think it's going to be really important we get healthy this week as well.
Sure. I'll have more in a moment.
This is Christian Miller for the Good Feet Store. I know from playing football at Alabama and in the NFL that if you have foot, knee, hip, or back pain, it can be a huge challenge. The Good Feet Store is designed to personally fit you with arch supports that alleviate and even eliminate your pain altogether. Try them before you buy them. They're in your free, no obligation, personalized fitting, and you can wear them home the same day. So if you're looking to improve your game, the Good Feet Store has you covered. Stop in for a free, personalized fitting today. Roll to victory at goodfeet.com. That's goodfeet.com. Roll Tide.
Join us this afternoon for Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, streaming live at 2 p.m. Central on all CTSN social media platforms. Crimson Tide Today is brought to you by The Good Feet Store. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Fight song is that, Jay?
Good old Missouri.
Is Missouri in the SEC now? Yeah. All right. Tuscaloosa Toyota. Go to TuscaloosaToyota.com. Get that Toyota Highlander. Man, beautiful vehicle. 5.99 APR in the first 72 months. They got the Camrys. The 2025s are already here. Go down to Skyland Boulevard. See Justin. See David. They will take absolutely great care of you. Tell them that Wimp and Barry sent you. All right, get right to the Tuscaloosa Toyota hotline. He was actually, or maybe still there, Lexington, Kentucky, I believe, last night. I know he was in Columbia, Missouri, calling the Missouri Kansas game. Tom, did you leave the court with Bill Self and them before the flood came on? They flooded that court in Columbia, Missouri on Sunday.
No, I did not make it off as quickly as he did. It was kind of hard to get out of that arena after all that. I don't know if you guys saw it. There was a really interesting moment at the end of that game, probably like 10 seconds left. Dennis Gates called a timeout.
Yeah, I saw that.
And, then he walked up the sideline and told Bill, hey, leave. Get your team off the court. Leave. And Bill looked back. Now, in postgame, Bill was very gracious about this and said it was respectful, and he was complimentary of Dennis for using the timeout. But in the moment, it looked totally different. And it looked like Bill Gates looked down at Dennis Gates, and he said, I'm fine. I can coach my team. And I didn't know your all's take on that. Like,
I don't remember. I don't know who was doing the game with you. I think one of you guys that were doing the game said, I wouldn't leave. I wouldn't take my team out. I want to soak it all. I don't know you use that exact word. One of y'all wanted Kansas to stay out there and watch it. I don't know, Dad. How would you have taken it? I would have taken it the right way, that he was just trying to protect my players.
I would have to.
Yeah.
By the way, your broadcast was better last night with Bradshaw.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, Dane does his homework. He's really good at seeing what happens.
I think that, so go ahead.
Well, probably.
Let me ask you this. Somebody got off to a big lead. I thought it was Colgate. Barry thought it was Kentucky to 17-0. And I was half asleep. Who got off to the big lead?
Kentucky did. Yes, 17-0. Colgate missed its first 10 shots.
That's right. And then they came back, made a game out of it. Yeah.
They took the lead in the second half. It's pretty impressive.
I was right.
Barry was wrong. Let me ask you this. How they shoot it okay. How good is Kentucky? I think Auburn is so good defensively. How good is Kentucky? Is the jury still out on them a little bit?
Well, you got to remember this about Kentucky. This is the first time since 2008 where they only have one McDonald's All-American on the team.
Yeah,
it is not loaded with NBA studs.
That's
and that's a huge difference, right? Because night in and night out in this league, you're going to face first rounders. That being said, and so I think that's where the fall off is with this team, and that's why there's a ceiling on them. They are much better. I believe they're a much better shooting team than they've shown from three.
Yeah.
I'm going to look up what the numbers were last night, but they've had like 4 straight games.
They're 10 for 30. They're 10 for 31 last night.
Okay, well then that's actually an improvement. They've been under 25% for the last 4 games, and now they'll be without Kriisa, their backup point guard, probably until February, and their starting point guard, Lamont Butler, who's a great defender, missed last night and didn't play much against Gonzaga, and will probably be back against Louisville. Anyway, that's a really long-winded answer. I think they're really good. The team is better than its parts because of the style that Mark Pope plays. They lead the country in scoring. They're like third in assist. They play what I consider a modern style, very similar to what they're playing at Alabama. It's get down the floor, get up threes, don't pass up a good shot, don't put it on the floor unless you have to, and get off a shot quick, and let the metrics kind of dictate where the game flow of the contest. But no, I think they're really good, and I think they have good depth. It's not elite depth because they don't have elite athletes on the floor even with their starters.
Okay, that's a good answer. I'm somewhat wrong on that, but appreciate that. Thank you.
You would have thought Kentucky was going to be down a little bit, but they're actually better than people thought. Missouri, Tom, they're 8-1. Vanderbilt, a brand new team, and this guy's done a tremendous job. Now, when they get to the league, we'll see. But I mean, they're beating good teams. They beat TCU the other night. How are these teams turning this around? I guess it's just portal. What has Missouri done? They were 0-18 in the league last year to be able to knock off number 1 Kansas at home in a great environment. What are these teams doing to make such a turnaround?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that rivalry is just a different level, even if some of these guys had never played in it before. And so that was worth some points, and it was certainly worth momentum to that Missouri team to be on its home court. But Missouri's better athletically than they were. The Mark Mitchell kid came in from Duke. He was a 2-year starter at Duke. Wasn't thrilled with how he was being used within that offense. He's more facing the basket now. Big power forward. He hit a monster 3 towards the end of that game, and he's not a great shooter. That was one of those don't shoot. Oh, it went in. Okay, congratulations.
Yeah.
But he's a banger, and Tamar Bates, who's I think is in his 6th year, had a huge game against Kansas. I think it's just another year under the system. And finally, the biggest change for Missouri is their sophomore point guard, Anthony Robinson, showed flashes last year. He is a really, really good player. He had I think 29 against Cal in the challenge, and they're just better all the way around. And I thought they were better against Kansas because he tightened up the rotation. He likes to play 12 guys.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's realistic, and I don't think that's fair to your frontline players. And I'm not saying starters need to play 38 minutes, but I think starters, if they're clearly better than the guy coming off the bench, they need the time to get into a rhythm, and they need to be able to play through some mistakes. And when you're playing 12 guys, you don't afford them that opportunity.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of just talking basketball, but I have to do things when I think of it. I can't. It may get off
that's
the line.
a good interview style.
Yeah. I want to tell you. And I'm not telling you this because you're on when I ask you to be. I'm not brown-nosing you. But in baseball, in football, and in basketball, you do an absolutely terrific job. And I'm not trying to get any points with you at all. But I think because you're just kind of a down-to-earth announcer that doesn't try to add too much or tell too much about what happens. Let the fans see what happens. That's what television is all about. And I just won't take this time to brag on it. I know it's Christmas, and I don't brag on many people. But I think I don't. Barry will tell you that. But
that's the best Christmas gift
you're terrific. I think you're.
Thank
terrific.
you. Okay, I'll take that compliment.
Wow, that's Tom. Do we need to send you that segment, Tom?
Yeah, but don't send it to me. Send it to my bosses.
Yeah. All right, Tom, I'm going to flip on you here, and I'm going to go to football. And I posed this question yesterday, and I believe it. Has Greg Sankey and the SEC become entitled, where they just think that hey, we're the big boys, we're the big SEC, we deserve to have 4 teams in this playoff, and then when it didn't happen, I hear people crying about Alabama not making it. They didn't deserve to make it. They had every opportunity to make it. Talking about maybe we need to redo our schedule, the way we schedule, the strength of schedule obviously wasn't factored in. You lost 3 games in the league. SMU lost none. I just don't like the way I hear coming out of the SEC, coming out of some of these athletic directors, some of these coaches, not DeBoer so much. Take responsibility for what happened on the field. And the SEC didn't deserve to have 3 teams in this year. Have we become an entitled league?
Well, we'll see, because as you guys know, this is only around for another year in its current format after this season.
Yeah.
And it can be it will be restructured some way or another.
Needs to be.
Whether it's just fine-tuning or a complete overhaul. And if it's an overhaul and you get to 16 teams and the league then demands to have 4 at-large, 4 spots, then yes, that would be the definition of entitlement. You're better than everybody in the country. More often than not, you're going to get more teams and maybe more teams than you deserve, depending on, reputation. I think the biggest challenge that the league is facing right now, and you haven't read much about this, but this is my prediction that you will, like into spring ball and over the summer, is that the league has done an amazing job at finding these incredible revenue streams. The TV deal was a huge success this year with ABC. And they've been on the forefront of a lot of stuff that has filled everybody's coffers. The complaint from football coaches is hold on. Stop spending so much time focusing on revenue, and please help us with the day-to-day of all the stuff that we have to deal with in college football that we didn't have to deal with years ago. And that's not to say that the league isn't working really hard through, politicking in D.C. and trying to get Congress involved and this, that, and the other. But the real frustration from football coaches is this roster turnover, what recruiting has turned into, the portal, having to re-recruit your kids, not just when the portal opens, but throughout the entire season.
Yeah.
I think that is an unspoken but real challenge for these football coaches. They're day in and day out. And listen, entitlement is a powerful word, but you could make an argument that the league has earned the opportunity to have a seat at the table based on the history of results. The challenge is the infrastructure has changed. Look what BYU is doing on the basketball side. Like, you no longer need to be a blue blood. The nouveau rich are now taking over, and they can go, quite frankly, they can go buy players. Like, you can be Mark Cuban and buy an NBA team and then spend a ton of money and win games. That wasn't possible before. It was a much more long and drawn out process to try to build a program. Now you just, you write the check and you fill your roster spots.
Yeah.
I'm a big, of course, recruiting guy and also a scheduling guy. The schedules were somewhat out of whack, and I'm not going to go into who's good and who is bad. In the final analysis, who sits down and helps make the schedule for the SEC in football? Is it computerized? Is it conference meetings? Tell me, in your opinion, how that works.
I don't know for sure. I imagine there's a computer program they use, but I know what the model was in terms of making these two rounds of scheduling, this previous season and next season, where it's basically, you're just rotating and flipping sites with the guys that are already on your schedule. Sure. And it was based on historical data. It was based on, and I don't know how far back they went, but it was, and here's the hole in it, right? The hole in it is, Oklahoma won the Big 12 like 14 times. And so they get credit for being a Tier 1 program. Oklahoma was not a Tier 1 program this year. Yeah. And I think it's going to be harder and harder to predict, because what you want is you want to build as balanced a schedule as you can.
Sure.
They don't want to do anybody any favors. They don't want to give anybody a cupcake schedule. They want, if it was perfect, it'd be like the NFL, except everybody would come out 500. Like, everybody would win as many games as they lose. That's the perfectly balanced schedule.
Right.
They did an amazing job with the schedule of each and every week finding, if not one, more likely two, and sometimes three premier matchups that were great for television. Okay. But I think the model that they used was well thought out and well planned and well researched, which was, here are the different tiers of teams based on their historical data. Well, you don't have historical data for Diego Pavia because Vanderbilt had never had a quarterback like Diego Pavia. So you got to take all of that with a grain of salt, I think.
Is it right to have? I just don't think there's just too much room for bias to come in to have the Michigan. I'm not talking about having the Michigan athletic director over this committee. Don't you need to have somebody that's neutral? I mean, his job's kind of to help the Big Ten. You would hope they would take all that out of it, but you start looking at Tennessee, they don't get a home game. Ohio State does. Can we not find a better way and find better people to put on this committee than somebody who's a sitting AD?
I don't know what the answer is to that. I really don't. I mean, they have shifted over the years. They have a former media member on the panel now, Kelly Whiteside, who was a longtime writer and covered college football. The couple fundamental mistakes that I see that they have as a committee, and by the way, just understand, as a committee, a lot of times they're playing by the rules that they're given. You know, there's a lot of structure to everything that they do.
Yeah.
But whether it be having a former media member or former coaches, you have a lot of people who are not actively involved. The ADs are really the only ones that are actively involved. Obviously, you can't get an active head coach on there. But I would like to see them get people that cover it, that are there, that cover it, that are invested on a daily basis. And then secondly, not to be a stats nerd, but and I was in there a couple months ago and we went through the process. The analytics that they use are very crude and rudimentary. Like there is no nuance to it. And there are enough people out there that do this for a living who say, hey guys, like I'll give you a quick example. On the basketball side, the NCAA has adopted multiple of these analytics ratings, the KPI numbers, the Ken Palm numbers, Evan Maya numbers, and now they're used by the selection committee to, you know, they don't go verboten, but they're used by the committee to give a better feel for trying to compare apples and oranges. The football guys don't use those things. They're available to them, and those same guys that have come up with these formulas have knocked on the door and said, hey, why don't you take a look at this? Like, this is a great way to compare Team A to Team B when, schedules are unequal and leagues are unequal. And I think they need to lean more into that because you just can't, I don't care what they say, you can't watch every game and you just don't have the nuance of, what happened in week 3 when Auburn was on the first of 3 quarterbacks, or that day Auburn was playing the quarterback who threw 4 interceptions. That's not the same Auburn team. Just using like one random example. And with small sample size, you should be able to kind of dig into the minutia and know what happened with each team every single week. It's only 12-game season.
Before we let you go, when will you be in Tuscaloosa?
I'll be there Saturday. You going to be down there?
Yeah, I think I am. Yeah. I'll speak to you. I'll try to. You got a lot of games at Tuscaloosa?
I only have my schedule through like the week after Christmas.
I'll
I don't know yet.
If nothing happens, I'm hoping to have somebody to handle some things here at home. If I can do that, I'm going to try to come.
Well, that'd be great. I'd love to see it.
Tom,
I don't want you to shirk any of your husband responsibilities, though.
Yeah,
lastly, in your travels, what is going on in Knoxville, Tennessee? Baseball, national champs. Rick Barnes, ranked number 1. And they're in the playoffs in football. Tell me what is in the water up there? What has changed to where they are so good, really, in all 3, which is hard to do, to be that good in all 3. You got to give Danny White and all those coaches and players a lot of credit up there. What's happening up in Knoxville?
I think they're spending money. I think they're spending it wisely.
They're making it.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand, right? That baseball program started winning. They redid the stadium to get more revenue out of it. Guess what? If you have more revenue, then it's not direct, but then you have more money to spend on your roster and it gets better. I think that's a big part of it. Like, they've done a really good job of seizing momentum and getting everybody from their biggest donors, who are diehards, and just like any of the, they could probably be comparable to any, take their top 5, they could probably line up pretty good with any school's top 5 from a donor standpoint, but also the average fan. So write a check, Venmo money in, or whatever it is. And I think that's a huge part. Let's also not mistake this. When you have a football stadium that seats over 100,000, that's the real disparity between the haves and have-nots. Missouri, for example, I was talking with their athletic director last week. Missouri is $35 million in revenue below the SEC average. $35 million annually. That is not just a shortcoming they have to deal with, this year. That compounds, right?
Yeah.
If every week you make $35 more than I do, then at the end of the year, I'm never going to be able to catch up. And so I think the schools with those revenue streams that are in addition to what everybody shares from a TV standpoint, they have a huge advantage because when it comes to payroll, they can be the Yankees. They don't have to be the Devil Rays. And what I mean by that is, you've got more money to spend, but also it gives you room where you can afford to make mistakes. You can miss, the Yankees can miss on a free agent and go get another one. What Tennessee spends on their football roster on, I'd venture to guess that Tennessee's paying its eighth wide receiver more than Missouri's paying its second wide receiver. And, that just, you have I think it goes for all of those sports. Rick Barnes has done an amazing job in recruiting, to get good players in there, and they coach them up really well.
Well, when you come to Tuscaloosa on Saturday, when you pull in there, just talk about how much Dad bragged on you. You'll probably park right next to the building, Tom, when you get here. So,
I usually park next to the dumpster, so that would be...
I didn't even know he was going to be there.
Now, when you say, if anybody heard that that's doing the parking, Tom, you may park inside the arena over there as much as he's bragged on you. So have safe travels, sir. Well, they got a new Starbucks. New Starbucks right there by the arena, right up by the block. So whip on in there and get you a.
Well, Barry knows where that is. He don't know where a lot of things are, but he knows where that is.
I don't go to that one, but Tom he'll be pulling in. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, thanks, fellas. Good catching up with you.
All right, let's go.
Which school did he say it was broke? Down a lot?
Missouri. Just saying that their stadium and all that.
I missed what he said. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Bryant Bank. Yeah. Bryant Bank is not down. Bryant Bank is up in revenue, and Bryant Bank is going to be up in your thoughts if you go by there and visit with the banker and visit with the people that work with that bank. You'll find that Bryant Bank will do everything they can to be sure that your money is secure. You'll also be able to bank online around the clock, and you will feel very comfortable about your work habits with Bryant Bank. I hope that you'll go by there and tell me you heard Barry and I on the show and talk about how what a good job they do. I know that for a fact because I trade with them here in Tuscaloosa, in Birmingham, excuse me. So I hope that you'll go by Bryant Bank, tell them that you're inside the locker room and that you'll end up opening up an account.
All right, we'll take the break up at the phone lines 205-342-9904. Listen to Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Traffic's moving right along, but we had one problem on Lurleen Wallace, or actually 15th Street northbound after 2nd Avenue. Now, this is a current accident in Forest Lake, folks, and this is blocking the right plus center lane. And so that left lane is the only one.
For Town Square Media Tuscaloosa radio websites. Fill out the Advertise Here form. Put the power of Town Square Media to work for your business.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Sunshine in full supply. The high for this afternoon around 52. Tonight mostly fair with the low at 33. Tomorrow is sunny day, the high 55. Saturday increasingly cloudy. We'll have a chance of rain by Saturday night, the high 58. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 32 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Follow Tide 100.9 on Facebook today to watch our live shows, read the great articles, and interact with Bama fans today.
Welcome back to Inside. There are a couple of bowl games. You got Army-Navy, obviously, on Saturday. Then you got Jackson State, South Carolina State in the Cricket Celebration Bowl, and then that's at 11. And I think the Army-Navy sandwich in between that. Then night game, South Alabama, Western Michigan will play in the Veterans Bowl, I believe. I can't read anymore. I got to get some reading glasses. But we won't do a blue plate this week unless Dad wants to, but we will get those going next week. And Chuck Norwood, go to chucknorwood.com. If you're looking to buy or sell down the Orange Beach, Gulf Shores area, then Chuck is your guy. 251-948-1212. Go to chucknorwood.com. Several calls holding here. We'll start with Digger. Good morning, Digger. How are you?
Hey, Dick. You see the schedule that Georgia gets next year?
Same schedule as this year, just flipped.
What is he whining about?
Who?
It's a cakewalk. I get it. He's got to break in another quarterback, but he has all of his tough games at home. So I don't get it. What just he knew this was going to happen. I don't know why he's belly aching about it now.
What did he say?
I mean, somebody's got to explain to him it's not the Eastern Division anymore. You're going to have to play somebody.
What did he say?
Right? Yeah.
What did he say? I didn't hear what he said.
Well, he was complaining to Sankey about the schedule being unfair.
Well, he was after
that he was having to go. And granted, it was. We can all agree they had a tough schedule this year, but not as bad as Florida. Really?
No.
Come on.
No.
So, real quick,
it
is. It looks like it's going to happen. You're going to get a cap on July 1st. $20.5 million for your players. It's going to be up to the university where you want to put it. So if Alabama wants to put all of its money on football, which they normally do, and leave all the other sports behind, which they normally do, there you go. You got what you wanted. I don't understand why Fallerstein is whining about this. He thinks it's socialism, and he's got it ass backwards. It's free market. Go get the players you want if you're willing to pay. There is a price market for it.
Do you think they're going to put a cap?
Like I said, you got to justify the expense.
So is that going to be in addition to the revenue sharing?
No, that's a lot. Yeah, it is. Let me stand corrected. They're confusing it with profit sharing and revenue sharing. It's going to be up to the university to determine what is profit and what is revenue.
Oh, God.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, really is, because I'm looking at the paperwork, and it's about 80 pages just on revenue sharing alone.
Yeah, well, read on it and call us back next week and explain it to us. Thank you, Digger. Thank you, Digger. All right, back to the Yellowwood hotline. Get Tony in. Good morning, Tony.
Tony.
Hey, guys. Good morning. Coach, is Coach Anderson the reason why the whole Mill Road thing coming up? Are there talks of being a revolt or anything if he has to be transferred? Or?
No, I'm curious if
Barry's trying to get some talk.
No, I'm serious though. If you're Kalen, I'm gonna put your Kalen DeBoer, Tony, and he comes in, and he says, "I want to come back." Are you gonna say, "Okay, let's go"? Are you gonna be excited, or are you gonna say, I think we need to look at another option. We got these other guys behind you. We got to utilize our running backs, our receiver. What are you gonna do?
I go with option B.
But how do you handle that? How do you handle that?
That's the best question of it all right there. Maybe like Coach Saban did with Jalen Hurts. Like, look, you could learn your skill set might be used better for another location outside because it's not what we run. The guys over his 2 years starting career, he has thrown 19 interceptions. That's not good, guys. It's not. This year alone, I think it's 7 and 12, 7 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. But he's just got to there's a lot of stuff he's got to get better at doing, and he hadn't shown. And Coach, you're right. You said earlier, you're going to throw to Ryan Williams because he's open. Coach, ain't nobody open 20 times a game like he was. He threw to Ryan Williams bracket covers and double covers against Tennessee.
Yeah. Okay.
19 or 20 times. He can't do that. There's if he's that big a weapon, he's going to be at some time bracketed or double covered. And I'm not saying that's why some of these receivers left, because we had receivers leave last year as well. I think they're being poached away it's the way the game is being played now. But, but you're right, Barry. You're dead on about the running backs. I played running back, and I can tell you it would bother me to know that a quarterback got sometimes double or triple the carry, 2 running backs got combined.
Yeah.
And, I do think he's a good kid. And I don't think players will, but let me talk I don't want to talk in circles here, but yeah, I think you're right about what happened last year at South Florida. I do. I think you're right. I think some of those players laid down and I think they did it to prove a point. Now, moving forward, I don't know that Saban said this or Saban knew about that. He had to have known. But if I had players do that, and it's my football team, they can pound the pavement. You don't do that to a teammate that's trying to get an opportunity to play. You don't lay down because you like some other guy. Because at the end of the day, like I've said, everybody and their brother knew that Tua was a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. So not every time is the coach going to play the best player. That's just simply not true.
Yeah, sometimes he plays the guy that's been here longer.
Absolutely. And guys, he didn't, again, Jalen Hurts really didn't get us beat. But when you go to look at it and you run out of options and you have to put in another guy, players see it just like, I remember Jeremy Pruitt telling me one time that Tua did things to them in practice that he couldn't stop. He couldn't stop it. And that's with, one of the better defenses we had, probably the last great defense we've had in 17. And so you kind of know who's better and who's worse, but maybe that better or worse quarterback isn't here yet. And that's the thing. That's where the rub is. I don't know. Like I told you last week, I truly believe that if they thought Ty Simpson was a better quarterback, he'd have played a lot more than he did.
I think
or if you give him something different.
Hoping that he goes pro, and that makes it easier for everybody. They don't have to play against him. They don't have to make a decision on whether to keep him or not, and they'll wish him well and then get
it won't cause divisiveness. But I do believe Keelan Russell's going to have a chance to start, guys. I know that's odd being a true freshman. But anyway, y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Tony. All right, we'll get to the last call here. Get Tom in. Tom, you got the last word of the day.
All right, well, no, I've got a question.
Go ahead.
I saw something yesterday that was that I just didn't quite understand, and I thought maybe y'all could clear it up for me. I've been curious in following the free agent market in baseball here in the last week or two, and I saw where Matt Freed had signed with the Yankees. Did you see that?
Yeah, $218 million or $200 for 8 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and a great contract, and he's a good player. But I was watching the conversation between Aaron Boone and some other people about what he liked about Max Fried. And they were asking him to evaluate. He made a statement on that. I'm not sure I've heard this before. But Boone said that one of the things that he liked about Max Fried was that when he's pitching, his ability to soften the blow off the bat. Have you ever heard that term before?
I think those wooden bats, if you can throw the ball in certain places, then the ball doesn't jump off those wooden bats. So I do think those are a factor sometimes where the pitch and how they hit the pitch is certainly a factor in it for sure, yeah.
Well, I had never heard that, and it raised some curiosity to me when he said that as part of the evaluation for Freed. And I thought, well, I'm gonna call Barry. He's familiar with pitching because of Jack, and maybe
there's certain pitches that they know they're going to throw, and it's going to get soft contact for sure. That's what they're hoping. So no doubt. Thank you, Tom. We got to get out. We'll talk to you tomorrow. That's it for today's show. We appreciate Richard Hendricks and Tom Hart. Join us tomorrow. JC will move to 7:30, and then we'll have the great Sonny Smith on tomorrow as well. You listen to Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports. Have a great day, everybody.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of The Game, we're going to talk Insider.com. We'll get an update on the transfer portal, who's in, who's out, what's next. Will Alabama be looking to add to their roster? We'll talk about that with him, Bruce Marshall, Brad Powers, all starting at 2 p.m. here on The Game. on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Tide 100.9 Traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Traffic's moving right along, but we had one problem on Lurleen Wallace, or actually 15th Street northbound after 2nd Avenue. Now, this is a current accident in Forest Lake, folks, and this is blocking the right plus center lane. And so that left lane is the only one